Hare Krishna Prabhus. Good to be with you again in your Moscow-based Russian Sangha. Today's lesson is called Finding Our Mentors and Mission in His Mission. As Arjuna became confused about his duty on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so we all become confused on the battlefield of life. Hence the Gita's guidance appeal to find our mentors and mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission. Let's first look at the challenge of knowing who we are and what our duty is. Who am I? Quote, know thyself, the philosopher Socrates admonished his students. For, quote, the unexamined life is not worth living. And who am I? Quote, immortal soul, Socrates asserted. When the Athenian court sentenced him to death for disrespecting, quote, the gods, Socrates was unafraid. Quote, how shall we bury you? A tearful friend asked. Quote, any way you like, Socrates replied. That is, if you can catch me, and I don't slip through your fingers, unquote. And by the way, we know those quotes because one of Socrates' either disciple or friend were taking notes, very scrupulous notes of the end of Socrates' life. So we have these quotes. Of all Western philosophers, Srila Prabhupada appreciated Socrates' fearless conviction in the immortality of the soul. Nearly 2 millennia later, another now famous, quote, self appeared in Shakespeare's Hamlet. Quote, this, above all, to thine own self be true, Polonius advised Laertes. But it was one's worldly interests, not the transcendent spirit, that Polonius had in mind, an earthly self. So from Socrates, you get a spirit-based self, and then in that Hamlet play, you have a kind of a earth-based self. The degradation continues today with Self magazine. This is a magazine we have on the racks at like in the grocery stores when people go into the checkout line. It's one of the magazines. It's called Self. The degradation continues today with Self magazine displaying well-toned bodies as the self. Yet to think of the body as the self, to forever compete to satisfy its demands, and then to simply die, is simply animal life. Our human capacity for higher consciousness should tell us something. We have a higher purpose. Mixed up. In Vedic times, different classes of human beings were born and raised to cooperate in service to the Supreme. Lacking that spiritual focus, today's classes often conflict, and today's individuals are often conflicted. As Prabhupada told the World Health Organization, the WHO, such a population is called, quote, Varna Sankara, mixed population, unquote. In a word, mixed up. Small wonder that professions like life coaching and occupational therapy have become so popular. By and large, modern materialistic culture is unaware that life has a sacred purpose. To understand who we are and what our duty is, we moderns, typically unconnected to a culture of self-realization, need help. In a spiritual society, the first help are spiritual parents. Spiritual parents. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam 5:5-18, we should not become, quote, a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod, unquote, unless we can deliver our, quote, dependents from the path of repeated birth and death, unquote. Such a responsibility. Quote, that is the real contraceptive method, Prabhupada wryly observed. Quote, that we are married, undoubtedly husband and wife, but unless we are competent to give protection to our children, we should not beget children, unquote. That was from a lecture Prabhupada gave in Mayapur on the 26th of February, 1976. Now, by contrast, modern groups like the International Planned Parenthood Federation are committed to providing, quote, services like contraception and abortion. Quote, this is Kali Yuga, Prabhupada would remark. Even in the womb, they are coming after you with a knife, unquote. I put that in there because I personally heard and saw Prabhupada say that. I was sitting, this was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in, March 1972, Prabhupada came. And he, actually, no, it was September 72. So he was, he just had a little, he gave a little arrival talk in a room in the temple. And I was sitting to his left, right on the side. So I was seeing Prabhupada like a profile shot of his face. And so Prabhupada was talking about how evil Kali Yuga is. And then he leaned forward and he started moving his hand, his right hand, as though he had a knife in it. And Prabhupada said, even in the womb, they are coming after you with knife. Even in the womb. This is Kali Yuga. And when he said that, his eyes were bugging out of his eye sockets. I could see his eyes bulging from the side. He was so, horrified by Kali Yuga. Consigning themselves to a similar fate, materialists kill the human opportunity to escape the nightmare of repeated birth and death. In a letter to a lady disciple, Prabhupada underscored the responsibility that comes with that opportunity. Quote, these children are given to us by Krishna. They are Vaishnavas, and we must be very careful to protect them. These are not ordinary children. They are Vaikuntha children, and we are very fortunate we can give them a chance to advance further in Krishna consciousness. That is a very great responsibility, unquote. Spiritual teachers. Spiritually minded parents naturally want their children educated by spiritually minded teachers. Such a partnership helps children grow up to be all they can be in devotional service. But knowing what's best for a child takes time and perseverance, even for great teachers. Consider Dhruva Maharaja's talks with Narada Muni. From saints to serpents, the sage Narada engages all kinds of embodied beings in devotional service. Yet few have been as precocious as 5-year-old Prince Dhruva. Forbidden by a spiteful stepmother to sit on the lap of his father, King Uttanapad, Dhruva angrily approached his natural mother for help to avenge the insult. Convinced that no one but the Supreme Lord could pacify her son, Dhruva's mother inspired the boy to seek God in the forest. Meeting Dhruva in the wilderness, Narada advised him to go back to his mother and return when he was grown up. In the meantime, Dhruva should live undisturbed and satisfied with his lot as ordained by Providence. Sage advice, acknowledged Dhruva, but because, quote, I am covered by ignorance, this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart, unquote. That's Bhagavatam 4.836. In his commentary, Prabhupada writes, quote, Dhruva Maharaj indirectly informed the great sage Narada that there are 4 kinds of human spirit. Now, this is one of the few times I've ever seen Prabhupada use the word spirit to indicate our human nature. Usually spirit means spirit soul, and then we have our conditioned nature. But here, Prabhupada is using the word spirit to talk about our different natures. The saintly spirit, the warrior spirit, the mercantile spirit, and the worker spirit. What are appropriate instructions for one spirit are not necessarily appropriate for another. Further, quote, unless a child is trained according to his tendency, there is no possibility of his developing his particular spirit. It was the duty of the spiritual master or teacher to observe the psychological movement of a particular boy and thus train him in a particular occupational duty. Excuse me. As we saw in the last lesson, the longer Srila Prabhupada stayed with his disciples, the more he took a varnashram approach to engaging them in devotional service. Whereas surrender to Krishna in ISKCON's early days often meant foregoing one's favorite service for the sake of quickly spreading the movement worldwide, to make his mission sustainable over time, Prabhupada later sounded more like his above Dhruva commentary, highlighting the need to serve according to one's natural work. And here's a quote from a Bhagavatam lecture in Vrindavan, 1976. Quote, the spiritual master will say that you work like this. That is natural. Just like in the school, college, somebody is being trained up as a scientist, somebody is trained up as an engineer, as a medical man, as a lawyer, according to the tendency, practical psychology of the student. He is advised that you take this line. So by the instruction of the guru, the real purpose is Krishna consciousness, and according to his guna or quality and karma work, he's engaged in a particular occupational duty, unquote. Since spiritual mentors play such crucial roles in helping us find our mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission, how did Prabhupada advise us to select them? Selecting spiritual masters. In addition to the library of foundational spiritual literature Srila Prabhupada left all generations of his followers, he also left a vast treasure of recorded instructions, which nicely complement his books. In his Bhagavad Gita as it is, for example, Lord Krishna enjoins us to, quote, learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, unquote, through service and submissive inquiry. In one Bhagavatam lecture in Honolulu, Prabhupada revealed that the approach goes both ways. So this is a Bhagavatam lecture in Hawaii, Honolulu, in 1974, January. Quote, the spiritual master and the disciple must meet together, at least for 1 year, so that the disciple may understand that here is a person whom I can accept as my guru. And the guru also can see that here is a person fit for becoming my disciple. Then the business is nice. As I mentioned before, just because you have a bona fide spiritual master and a sincere candidate for initiation, it doesn't mean that those two people are necessarily going to work as guru and disciple. It takes time, at least a year, according to the Shastras. They should mutually examine each other to see if this kind of relationship is going to work. Even before the mutual examination begins, it is essential that senior devotees ground a newcomer in our Founder-Acharya's life, teachings, mood, and mission. When Prabhupada was traveling as the movement's sole initiator, he depended on his local leaders to train and test aspiring initiates. In ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, only a schooled and disciplined aspirant will be able to approach initiation with a cool head. Quote, who will best guide and engage me in Srila Prabhupada's mission? So first of all, everybody should be grounded in the Founder-Acharya. And then as we get to know our Founder-Acharya and different aspects of his mission, and we see who is doing the service of initiating, then we can begin to try to match our nature and our desires to serve with different people different gurus who also have areas of interest in this, and the same areas of interest. Of course, initiation is literally only the beginning. The road to finding our ultimate calling, our mission and his mission, inevitably passes through crossroads of purification and consultation. Purification. In his Sri Krishna Samhita, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur observes that before settling our varna, our occupational duty, we must first purify our nature. Reflecting on the Thakur's observation, His Holiness Shivaram Swami points out in his book, it's called Varnashram Compendium, Volume 1. As far as I know, that's only one volume so far. Chapter 30, which is called, quote, Determining One's Varna, that by seriously and sincerely following the devotional life Srila Prabhupada has given us, we can purify our nature in 3 ways. So Maharaj observed that if we just follow the life Prabhupada has outlined for us in his instructions, there's 3 ways we can purify our nature. 1, by rites of passage, qualifying oneself, for example, to receive first and second initiation, and committing oneself either to the path of celibacy or responsible married life. 2, by education and training, immersing oneself in and allowing oneself to be transformed by systematic scriptural study, as in a Bhakti Shastri degree program, and readily accepting counselor supervision. 3, by devotional practices, regularly participating in Prabhupada's full morning program, either at the temple or in one's home. Prabhupada's early morning regimen for us includes the 5 most purifying devotional practices outlined in the Nectar of Devotion: chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping the deities, associating with devotees, residing in a sacred place, and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Along with purifying our nature, to discover our mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission, we need to consult with senior devotees. Consultation. If, quote, it takes a village to raise a child, that's the old African saying, it certainly takes a healthy spiritual community to raise a lifelong devotee. In his conclusion to Sri Krishna Samhita, Srila Bhaktivinoda mentions 3 kinds of consultation we need to settle our varna, our life's mission. 1, so the first kind of consultation, according to the Thakur, is with trusted seniors who know us well. In Srila Bhaktivinoda's time, family elders, the family priest, and village leaders all helped to identify the qualities that dominated an individual's nature, as well as one's attraction to a particular work. Applied to Srila Prabhupada's mission, we need to ascertain the direction of our service with the help of trusted senior devotees who've known us and observed us over time. Second kind of consultation. With qualified seers of our past, present, and future. Quote, seers refers to qualified Vaishnav astrologers who can help guide us to the supreme destination. In his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.5, Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, it is the duty of a father to understand the astrological position of his children and do what is needed for their happiness. Also, I just remembered that in Prabhupada's Gita Nagari scheme that he drew up in the late 40s, that we talked about how Prabhupada revealed his mission. So that was the first face Prabhupada put on his mission, the Gita Nagari. He was telling the government of India to honor Gandhi by helping him, Prabhupada, make a community based on Gandhi's book of inspiration, the Bhagavad Gita. So in that Gita Nagari description, Gita Nagari community, Prabhupada said that the children in the community would be educated according to birth horoscope and natural tendency. When a qualified Vaishnava astrologer confirms in our stars what our seniors observe about us on the ground, that helps us to confidently settle our mission in the mission. Number 3, so we need to consult also with teachers and mentors in an educational institution. As we learned in lesson 6, Srila Prabhupada assigned a pivotal role to the Varnashram College for the re-spiritualization of human society, starting with ISKCON. Quote, everywhere, wherever we have got our center, a Varnashram College should be established to train 4 divisions. 1 class Brahmin, 1 class Kshatriya, 1 class Vaishya, 1 class Shudra. But everyone will be elevated to the spiritual platform by the spiritual activities we have prescribed. So not only do you learn your Varna in the Varnashram College, but you learn what it means to practice ashram life in different stages. Student, married, retired, renounced. And that was an excerpt from a Vrindavan Morning Walk, 1974. By playing our part, or our Varna, in society, we ultimately transcend our conditioning in stages, or ashrams, and ultimately go back to Godhead. And now I have to alert you, Prabhus, that we're coming toward the end, so please start thinking about questions and comments. Conclusion. Even if we haven't had the benefits of living in a Varnashram culture, since, quote, a devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. That's a line from Bhagavatam Purport 4.24.59. We can always challenge ourselves with a few pointed questions. So these are the kinds of questions that in the self-help community, very often the motivational speaker will challenge his audience to find their passion. So what's your passion? So I just adopted it for our purposes, for service. So these are the questions we can challenge ourselves. 1, to what specific service am I most drawn? And the more specific we can be, honestly, then that'll give us a clue about what our mission and the mission could be. 2, if I had all the money I needed, what would I do? Because that's a big excuse. We have, I'd love to do this, but I don't have the money. I have to work at something else. So what if money were no object, no obstacle? And then here's the other big obstacle, number 3. If I had all the time I needed, what would I do? I have no time. Yeah, I'd love to paint. I love to cook. But I have no time because I got to work, 24 hours a day. So what if we had all the time in the world? Number 4, if I knew I had only 1 month to live, What would I do? Like Parikshit Maharaj, he only had 1 week to live. So what did he do? He went down to the bank of the Ganges and by Krishna's arrangement, met the most advanced person of the day, Shukadev Goswami. And he didn't take a drop of water or a bite of food for a whole week. He was so focused and so fixed on self-realization. That was what he wanted to do with the last 7 days. So what would I do if I knew I only had a month to live? And finally, number 5, doing what specific service do I most forget time? What's that activity doing which I just forget all about the external world because it's so much me, whatever this, I'm in the Krishna zone. I'm completely in harmony with what Krishna wants me to do. What's my trance? So the answer to any one or all of these questions may give us a hint of our ultimate mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission. Finally, absorbing ourselves in the life, teachings, mood, and mission of our beloved Founder-Acarya with the intent to cooperatively serve is the ideal foundation for making our best contribution to Srila Prabhupada's movement. As singular and selfless as his own life was, Prabhupada would be happy simply to see everyone do what they love to do for Krishna. And here's one of my favorite purport excerpts. It's from First Canto, Chapter 5, Text 32. Prabhupada's reaching out to people in all walks of life. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, and so forth, then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturalist, and so forth, then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. One should try to engage in the service of the Lord everything for which one has specific attraction. That is the way of peace and prosperity, and that is the remedial measure for all the miseries of material existence. Okay, so thank you, Prabhu. I'll be very happy to hear your questions and comments now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear Sureshvara Prabhu, for this class and your narration of Srila Prabhupada. We've got one question so far. Can varna of a person change throughout one person's life?
Okay, I was drinking my tea then. Does a varna change during the course of a person's life? Is that it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It can, but generally, like, think of Arjuna. He was born and trained as a warrior because he was the son of Indra and Kunti. The question again is, can a person's varna change over the course of life? So generally, like at birth, the stars give us a little blueprint of where we've been. And it's a little blueprint of our potentials, what we brought to this life. And in Kali Yuga, those potentials are generally all mixed up. We have tendencies toward all different kinds of work. You might have noticed that in yourself. It's not like in Vedic times where there's generations of purebred Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, but we tend to be Varna Sankara, as Prabhupada said. We tended to be all mixed up. So, but still, over time, with the help of our mentors, we usually do come to some mode of nature that dominates us, despite all the other modes competing for our consciousness. There's usually a default kind of mode. Just like Seth Rup Maharaj, the author of Prabhupada Lilamrita, when I remember when I was on his team, feeding him the research that he asked for to write the next chapter or the next paragraph. He said to me one day, you know, if I couldn't write, if I were not allowed to write, I would really have a hard time. Because if you look at Satsuru Maharaj's chart, there's writing all over the chart, and there's renunciation all over the chart. And even a good palmist can see in your fingertips, there's something about the tips of the fingers which indicates writing. So, yeah, okay, so back to Arjuna. So he, born and trained a warrior, and then the whole Gita was spoken because Arjuna wanted to change his varna. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted to go off in the forest and be a sadhu. He wanted to be a Brahmin. And Krishna did not approve of that. Toward the end of the Gita, Krishna said, look, if you don't fight now, you're compelled by your nature, you're going to fight anyway, but for the wrong cause. So you have to fight. That's your duty. That's the part you've been given to play in this life, but you have to fight for the right cause. So when we become purified and Krishna conscious, it's not that we necessarily change our varna, but we just become more purified editions of ourselves. Although, because Kali Yuga is such a topsy-turvy place, say we come into the Krishna consciousness movement and we happen to be working in one way, but with the help of our spiritual masters, our Shiksha and Diksha gurus, they might actually determine that, you've been working in this way, but we can see that actually you're more fit to serve in this way. So it could be a determination with the help of our spiritual masters that we can rather work in our varna. But it's a misunderstanding that the more we become purified, that we all become Brahmins. No. Arjuna, when he heard the Bhagavad Gita, he decided to fight for Krishna. He didn't change his varna. He just changed his consciousness. He changed his attitude toward the fight and toward his own part in it. So we can be Vaishnavas in Shudra Varna. What's that verse? Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Noi, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta, Say Guru Hoy. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking with Ramananda Roy, Ramananda was thinking, what is this? I'm a Kayasta, which is me. It's a kind of Shudra who's good in assisting in governance, actually. Shudra just doesn't mean laborer. It can also mean somebody who's working in a bureaucracy as kind of a bureaucrat, a technocrat. He was actually the governor of a certain place. So Ramananda Roy was thinking, how am I a Kayasta, which is technically included in the Shudra community? How am I instructing Mahaprabhu? This is not right. He should be instructing me. So Mahaprabhu, knowing his mind, said, no, that's externally what you are, but Kiba Vipra, whether you're very learned, Kiba Nyasi, or you're very renounced, Shudra Kene Noi, or you happen to be working in the Shudra Varna, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta. If you know the art and science of serving Krishna, say Guru Hoy. You're a guru. It's not dependent on any material thing like gender or varna or ashram or whatever material designation or political background or anything. So yeah, varna can change, and I would say at the suggestion of the guru, but we shouldn't be, aspiring to climb the varna ladder from Shudra to Vaishya to Kshatriya to Brahman. That's not what Krishna consciousness is about. It's discovering our natural contribution, our varna, our mission, our service, our calling, and just doing it, learning how to do that for Krishna. That's all. That's why we need mentors. Ideally, good parents, good teachers, good spiritual masters, and of course, in Kali Yuga, we don't generally have that, so we shouldn't lament that. We should just, get serious right now from where we are, and know that. Especially, that's why I said toward the end here, I said, finally, absorbing ourselves in the life, teachings, mood, and mission of our beloved Founder-Acharya, that's our foundational spiritual master, with the intent, excuse me, with the intent to cooperatively serve, that's the ideal foundation for making our best contribution to Srila Prabhupada's movement. And then I gave you the Prabhupada quote, Prabhupada reaching out to all kinds of people in all kinds of varnas and walks of life. So I hope that's okay. Good question.
Thank you, Prabhu. We have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
If you are below than Shudra, does it mean that you should serve the mission by donating to the preaching?
If you are below the, well, by Vedic standards, we're all below Shudra because we come from non-Vedic backgrounds. We're Malechas Yavanas, untouchables, meat eaters. It's no small thing to be an authentic Shudra in Vedic culture. You're trained in a service attitude, as all are, but specifically the contribution of the Shudra in Vedic culture is to assist the higher classes, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Most people are in Shudra Varna because they assist. They're in the employ. That's kind of the modern word for Shudra, employee. So, we're all Kali Yuga, Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha. Mahaprabhu said that everybody is Shudra or less in Kali Yuga. So what was the second part? If we're born below Shudra, then what does the person say?
Does it mean that we should serve the mission by donating for the preaching?
Okay, so we're all, number one is that we're all, outside the Vedic fold in Kali Yuga. And donating, at least in English, suggests money, but we're all advised to contribute whatever we have. Donate whatever it's a voluntary enterprise. Bhakti yoga, devotional service is voluntary. If it's forced, then there's no question of developing love. But by voluntarily donating our time or our money or our talents, whatever we have, and how to do that, that's again why we need mentors. How to connect with Krishna and Guru. We need guides to do that. So, but when I heard the question, it sounded like the question behind the question almost sounded like, if I'm hopeless, if I'm a lost cause, if I'm so fallen, should I just, throw money at the movement and hope that somebody's pleased? Anyway, maybe that's not what wasn't the intention, but whatever background we come from, there's a place for us in the sun, so to speak, a place in the sun of Prabhupada's movement. And that's why I did quote Prabhupada, reaching out to everybody. Doesn't matter where we've been or what we're doing. We can connect that to Krishna consciousness. When I teach this live, I didn't say it here, but I always say, now, don't get your hopes up. I want to help you manage your expectations. It's not that by the end of this class, you will have an epiphany that instantly you will know, this is my mission and the mission. Because it takes quite a while. It takes time. And our mission and the mission evolves according to our stage of life. if when we're young, as maybe as students, or we're married, or we're our service in the Hare Krishna movement, or our what do you say, our journey, it evolves. It goes. It's a long and winding road back to Godhead. So, like right now, here I am. Like Tuesday, my body will be 74 years old. So I had no idea, when I was a young man, that my mission in the mission would become sharing Prabhupada's glories with everybody, all over the world, either literally in person or on Zoom. But that's what it's become. And I'm really grateful, because I can't think of a better way to spend my last years. I mean, what else do I have to do, right? We got to pass on Prabhupada's legacy. So, yeah. It does evolve. Okay.
Yes, thank you. We've got one more comment. Thank you for a wonderful talk. Okay.
So I hope nobody was disappointed. They didn't have a flash of light and know what their mission and the mission was. But I did give everybody those questions you can explore.
Yeah, thank you.
What's that activity doing which you forget time? It's so much you. Yeah. Of course, in devotional service, that has to be discussed with the spiritual masters. So, yeah, we always need consultation. Well, let me give you a little transition to the next lesson. Transition. As we find and develop our mission to help our Founder-Acarya re-spiritualize human society, we'll be better able to develop deep love for Prabhupada. In the next lesson, we will look at why that intimacy with Srila Prabhupada that we long for can be so elusive and be hard to find. So now you see, this lesson that I just taught, that ends the Abhideya phase, where we deepen our commitment to the mission. And now the next lesson, 8, 9, and 10, lesson 8, we're moving into the Prayojana phase, where we start to taste the fruits of that relationship, which is love. That's the ultimate goal, is to deepen our love for Prabhupada. So the next lesson is called To Love is to Cooperate. And that is the hardest thing to do in Kali Yuga. This is the age of non-cooperation, fighting, quarrel, hypocrisy. So it's actually the most challenging lesson of the whole 10-lesson series. To love is to cooperate. Okay, thank you very much.